Hello, welcome to our broadcast today. Welcome to CESMII Studios. Today I'm here and we're broadcasting our 6 Degrees of Smart Manufacturing series. I'm Conrad Leyva.
And I'm Mike Yost.
Yes, and we will be talking for 20 minutes today. And this will not be a fully interactive session here with the audience. We really, however, want your questions via the Q&A panel. And we will continue this conversation on LinkedIn in our group. And we will give you that link at the end of our show today.
Excellent. Well, Ed, just to quickly do 2 things. First of all, apologize as the internet seems to be bogging down for all of us right now. So if there's some distortion, we apologize for that. We have no control over all the internet connections out there. But secondly, we just wanted to give a quick snapshot of why we talk about 6 degrees of smart manufacturing. It's based on the principle that if we're all just 6 degrees of separation from knowing every person on the planet, that we should be able to learn with and from each other to understand how to make smart manufacturing a reality. So these webcasts are about getting as many perspectives as possible to bring people in and learn from each other. And if you were with us last time, we brought on folks from our partner university in North Carolina State University to talk about their response to the COVID pandemic. That was a fantastic session, and we're doing more with NC State. One of the things we didn't get to talk about there in that webcast was the role of a systems integrator. The systems integrator partner with us at NC State is Avid Solutions, and we've asked Tim Shope, who's the Chief Innovation Officer, to join us here today because we want to have a conversation specifically about the role and the value of systems integrators in smart manufacturing. So, Tim, if you'll turn your camera and microphone on, we'll jump in here. Tim's he has the chops to be here with us. He's been in industry a long time, has background both in the on the manufacturer side as well as the solution provider side. He's sort of grown up with the technology evolution over the last 2.5 decades. So he's really passionate about driving performance, leveraging technologies. And so he's, as I said, he has the chops here and the reputation and the experience to bring a lot of value to our conversation. So, Tim, I want to thank you for being here and joining us.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for joining us, and let's get started.
Let's get started. Go ahead, Conrad.
So, Tim, so we usually start this with what does smart manufacturing look like today, but let's be a little more specific and ask you, so what is a system integrator in this smart manufacturing ecosystem? I mean, why do we need a system integrator? I thought everything was plug and play.
That's a great question. I think it's a question that continues to be evolving and continues to be defined. I think the role of a traditional system integrator, if we look back, over the past couple of decades, has matured and evolved already from doing a lot of panel design, a lot of cabinet design, et cetera, into PLC, SCADA applications, larger value chain applications, and I don't see that changing. I just see the position of a system integrator climbing higher in the value chain. As we look at the traditional Purdue model, right, the level 0, level 1, level 2 is, in my opinion, rapidly going to become somewhat commoditized as it becomes more and more vendor independent, and you get more to, as you said, the plug and play environment where you can mix and match vendor components, and that is all designed in a very modular, very templated fashion. I think that gives us the ability to climb higher, or the necessity to climb higher in the value chain to get to where we're actually able to assist with workflows, production, showing true value in process optimization as well as manufacturing optimization.
So Tim, maybe for folks, I think this is really critical. I think so many people, again, we've been talking at CESMII for the last probably 2 years about what we call the systems integrator dilemma. And that is there's not enough quality, competent systems integrators out there. And that's not a knock on anybody. It's out there. It's just that we need a whole lot more. Could you talk just a bit about the types of services that you bring? You talked about process optimization, right? So the systems integrator has an understanding of the applicability of solutions, tying it to the business outcomes that are needed, architectural things, deployment things, project management, program management, all those kind of things are services that are of value that, I think if you could articulate a bit, sort of what is the services that you offer and from a typical systems integration perspective?
Yeah, certainly. From a process optimization or a digital transformation perspective, I think that is probably the biggest role that we see the integration changing to today. Being able to deploy apps, analytics, to understand the whole technology stack from intelligent actuators, intelligent field devices, intelligent power control systems, all the way up through how to combine those sources of data into an analytic to where you can get prescriptive maintenance predictions, where you can predict motor failure 3. So I really see system integration looking more like being able to combine multiple technologies in a low code or no code environment to extract the value out of the data going forward. And I think it takes a very different skill set than it took, several years ago of just how the PLC HMI layer works. I think you've got to get all the way up to the transactional side of the business.
Certainly. Conrad?
And and how do you see that's evolving, the role of the system integrator? Because right, when we were doing PLCs, we were doing a lot of programming, a lot of coding. Is it still mostly coding? Are we going to need a new generation of system integrators, fresh out of college, or are we going to be able to reskill the system integrators that are out there?
I think it's a bit of both, right? I think we have to combine the velocity of change in technology and the younger generation and their adoption or embracement of modern technology with the learnings of the past, right? I mean, there are a lot of people in the system integration world that have deep domain expertise. That how we combine those learnings with the velocity of change is going to be the key to success. I think the adoption of new technologies, whether it's mobility, augmented realities, the ways that we use some collaborative technologies like we're doing today in the future is going to be huge. I don't think we're not going to be able to develop people around the water cooler, particularly in today's environment, the way that we could. We're going to have more of a dispersed workforce, and we're going to have to combine those technologies to help grow that next generation and leverage their skill sets and technologies they bring with them today.
I know, Tim, you had sent over a slide for us to put up that's based off of the Open Process Automation Forum, just to talk about their perspective of where things are from the currently within the OT or operational technologies marketplace, and then the evolution. So just flipping this over to put it behind us, if there's anything specific you want to talk to.
And I certainly think that this kind of explains, what I was trying to say is I think, this traditional system integrator role was basically designed around, you were either a Rockwell integrator, a Siemens integrator, you did some Delta V work, Honeywell, but you were traditionally aligned with a given system platform or architecture. I think as we move forward and whether it's the OPATH vision or just the natural convergence of technologies, I think you're going to see some system integrators that are going to stay at the hardware commissioning automation layer. And then you're going to see other system integrators kind of evolve into what I like to refer to as a strategic integrator, an integrator that can tie that business system with their deep-seated roots in the OT side. Really, you're seeing system integration move into the convergence of IT, OT that we've talked about for many, many years. I think that's the future of system integration. That's where the value is going to lie. As the lower levels of automation become more and more commoditized, I think you're going to see some artificial intelligence or AI being applied in that direction, to where you can write a functional description of what you want your automation to do in clear, plain English, and that will be translated into the programming language of your choice. It'll run in ladder, it'll run in structured text, or function block, depending on what platform you're looking at. And there are a number of initiatives out there to get to standard programming languages and programming interfaces. You look at things like code assists that are designed to combine code that'll run in multiple different PLC hardware platforms today. And so why not take that to the next level and make that able to be automated through some AI?
Now, Tim, I mean, and I know this comes from a system integrator group, but really, when I look at this diagram, it looks like things are getting more complicated, not simpler. So maybe you can explain a little bit what's going on here. It looks like we need more system integrators even, I mean.
Well, I think as we have adoption or development of standards and acceptance of ways to do things, much like the way CESMII is trying to have profiles of what a different piece of equipment looks like in the smart manufacturing platform. As we get to standards, then your automation system starts to function more like your smart device you got in your hand, your smartphone, right? Where adding I/O or adding a control loop becomes very much like adding a pair of headphones to your smartphone today. It doesn't matter if those are Bose or those are Apple or whose Bluetooth enabled devices they are. You simply pair it. It takes on its personality. The pipeline to the phone is headphones, but they can differentiate themselves in the way they build their profiles. So I think you'll see the integration at the lower level of systems will become easier and easier. The training cost to system integrators is going to go down significantly. You're not going to have to learn the intimate details of each and every automation platform that you're using. They are going to be, to your phrase earlier, plug and play. I know we've all heard that since Windows 95, but it's rapidly becoming a reality.
All right. So we're not. So what we don't see in this picture is the timeline dimension. So we're saying more specialized skills, but the timeline should start shrinking on these kind of efforts.
Absolutely, and that goes back to my comment of the velocity of change. And I think the unique situation we find ourselves in today is absolutely a catalyst for the adoption of that change. I think as we see some of the challenges going on in the workforce and in manufacturing right now, the conversations we're having with our clients and our customers and the challenges we're being asked to help solve today are very different than the challenges we understood 3 months ago. And I think it is a catalyst, and it's going to force the evolution much faster than any of us saw coming.
Yeah, maybe talk for a second, Tim. I know you said earlier about the plain English translation and sort of the commoditization of intent into code that drives operations and things like that. And while I may have issues in writing things in plain English, certainly the technology is getting us there. And specifically, the value even that CESMII is driving toward, right, is that the low level data connection, data contextualization, data management elements will shrink and be more of that commodity, right? Which says that the systems integration time required there is going to shrink. So services dollars, services revenue, et cetera. So you have to be focused on the higher level value that you're bringing, right? And that the solutions themselves, the solution providers, the vendor applications are going to be less about getting paid to plummet together and more about what is the value that it's bringing. So I guess any insights there or concern from your perspective that, hey, as these things get more plug and play, that your value as a systems integrator is going to shrink or perceived to be shrinking?
No, I don't think so. And actually, it kind of empowers us to do the things that I have loved to do my whole career, right? Configuring a 4 to 20 loop and figuring out whether something was sourcing or syncing was never the things that really, drove my imagination. The things that drove my imagination in the past was, advanced process control, model predictive control. In the early 2000s, you had a huge adoption of advanced model predictive control, but a lot of those controls went in, and if you didn't have a champion that babysat them or had a deep focus on them on a day-to-day basis, a lot of those models were turned off within 6 months of installation or commissioning. And it was always viewed that the models were too advanced, or you couldn't keep the model accurate. Well, it's just math, right? The reality is today's big data can actually re-empower that big data. We know for a fact that instrument is calibrated and it has no issues because it's an intelligent instrument. If we know that variable speed drive is functioning the way that it did when we commissioned the loop, and we start combining that power and process data together in an analytic function, we can know holistically that asset is performing the way that it was 6 months ago. So we know all the inputs and outputs of that model are sound. And unless we have changed our process, there's no reason for the model to degrade. We can leverage the lower level assets as we create profiles and templates for those and be able to sub that up and know that those assets are operating effectively. Then it re-empowers the things that we can do from an advanced control strategy. We can actually find the opportunity gaps, drive production into a given constraint, just as we designed to do it 20 years ago. We just have the compute horsepower to ensure that it works now. And so when I talk about climbing the value stack, that's just one example of it.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's critical. And I think it's critical for people to hear that perspective. And I agree wholeheartedly, right, that our focus as an industry has to be on the value add, on the business problems we're solving, the business value that we're bringing with solutions. And we had talked earlier how quickly this time was going to fly by us. And so I'm going to have to try to drive us towards closure. One of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to go down the path where you were talking a minute ago about, all of this evolution of the systems integrator transitioning into strategic integrator. That's been evolving well before the COVID-19 pandemic hit. Now we're actually in it, and it's accelerating the importance of that and driving change. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to move past this. We'll come back. We'll have a conversation in our bonus reel. We'll post that for folks, but we want to try to drive this to an end here to keep everybody on time. So if you could, Tim, everybody gets a quick soundbite from you as far as what smart manufacturing looks like today. Why don't you give us a soundbite here?
As I said earlier, I think smart manufacturing today is the connection of the intelligence that we're driving lower and lower in the field devices, connecting that to the upper level apps and analytics to empower an agile workforce to be able to tell an operator that there's an issue here rather than driving it to failure and waiting for failure. It gives us the ability to predict maintenance, to drive maintenance cost out, to drive sustainability in our operations. I'm enthralled to be part of this automation industry today and the vision of where we can go and the technology that's involved in front of us. It's amazing.
Fantastic. Well, appreciate it. Conrad, any closing words before
Well, smart is about integration, about connectivity, and integration is in your title. System integrator, strategic integrator. I mean, really, it's all about, it's very key to smart. But who's more important, the project manager or the system integrator? Stay tuned. We will continue this conversation in our bonus reel.
Absolutely. So we appreciate that. We appreciate Tim being here, everybody, for joining us here. Encourage you all to stay engaged with us. As Conrad mentioned earlier, we are going to post this recording online later today. And we would encourage people through our LinkedIn group to ask questions and engage with us. This is not just a conversation that ends after a discussion like this. Just want to remind everybody also that the rhythm we use here at CESMII for these webcasts is that we appear same time, the second and fourth Wednesdays of every month. We will be back in 2 weeks from today, May 27th at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. We will have CESMII's Chief Technology Officer with us to go deeper into machine learning for manufacturers. Then in June, we will be having a conversation about something we're calling the Smart Manufacturing Truth Table. And we'll continue with that rhythm going forward. So I guess, Conrad, any closing comments?
Stay engaged with us. Really, we want to hear from you. And if you have ideas for topics, also please post those on LinkedIn. Tim, thanks for joining us today. It was a pleasure. And let's keep the conversation going in our bonus reel also.
Awesome. Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, everybody.